The average age for kids to begin experimenting with illegal substances is 13. What can we do to help our kids say no, even when their friends are absolutely saying yes? And joining us now is Tubemogul, founder of Not My Kid, and Stephanie Kazmarek, who is a concerned parent. We've been talking about this because the last time you were on, Debbie, you brought a drug kit. And your son's 16, my son is 11. And I had a lot of controversy over this. So we want to ask you first, with the drug kit, what age do we start bringing up the subject?
Well, what we recommend, knowing that kids start using drugs on average at 13, is that when your son or daughter is heading into middle school, that you implement home drug testing with your child. It is something that is used to prevent drug use from starting, because what I deal with in the other side of our business at Not My Kid is too often helping parents find treatment programs because they did not prevent this from starting, and it is a parent's job.
Well, and tell her what happened with you, because your son was 16 and you brought the kid home, right?
I brought it home just to kind of present it, and when he saw it, he thought it was kind of amusing. He thought it was a joke. But when he realized it was serious, he was offended, and he was like, "Are you serious? You think I'm doing drugs? How could you think that?" And I was like, well, I just want to let you know, this is an option. This is something that we can exercise our rights to say you live in our home. This is it. And he was offended.
And it's the trust. It's the trust.
Well, let's talk about trust then. So I find it fascinating that we've been building trust with our children since they were born. And we do that by setting a boundary and then verifying that those boundaries are met. So let's go back to when they were toddlers and they began brushing their teeth. When we sent them upstairs to do that, how many of us went in and touched the toothbrush?
I still do that.
To make sure it was wet. Okay, so we set a boundary, but we verified. Without verifying boundaries, we're actually not building trust. Another example, we set a curfew. 11 o'clock is your curfew. How many parents just stay in bed and then weeks later say, hey, how are you doing with that curfew? Are you actually coming in on time? Yeah. Of course not. We stayed up and we made sure that they come in on time. One more example I would give to parents. Report cards. Typically, do your kids tell you what their grades are going to be before the card comes out?
I think he tries to give us a little bit of a warning and let you know.
Right, but we always check.
Yeah.
But you still look at the report card is the point. Imagine just allowing your kids to tell you what their grades are and how they're doing at school.
Okay, well, here was the issue that I had. I brought the kid home, and my son is 11, and a lot of the friends who were there have kids the same age. And all the women are like, are you crazy? You're going to scare him. What are you doing? He's too young. And then, okay, so let's say he's 12 and 13.
Yes.
What do I say? Like, I don't even really know what to say. I think we're so afraid of even bringing up the subject. Do I say, this is a kid, I know you're not doing drugs, but I'm going to test you anyway?
Honey, I love you enough that I want to be a part of keeping you away from drugs. I want to help shoulder the burden, and let me tell you, it is a burden that our kids face time after time, day after day. And parents need to step up and take some of that responsibility for their kids and shoulder some of the burden. So you say to your son, every time that you test clean, there's a reward involved, because I know how hard it is for you to say no, hun, day after day and time after time. And I will also add, I've spoken now to tens of thousands of parents, and the number one thing that parents tell me when their kids go on to get addicted to drugs is how sorry they are that they did not do something to prevent it. Because when the doors are open, parents like myself know how hard it is to go back and try to close those doors.
But as parents, and I know with your daughter too, who's young, 12.
She's 12. And
I think we're just like, not our baby, not my daughter, not my son. He's perfect. He has good grades. There is no way, and that's what my friend said, there is no way Jake would ever do drugs. But it's like, is that how you feel?
No, exactly. My son, he was more offended, where my daughter, when she saw it, she goes, you think that's me?
I mean,
she was really sad about it.
So when my son was on a student government trip to Coronado Island with the leaders of the high school as an incoming freshman, what did I do to help him out of the situation when this beautiful senior cheerleader said, you want to get high with me?
Wow.
What would your son say? How many times?
I don't know. That's the
what I now want my son, he could have said is, hey, I can't do that because you're not going to believe. My mom drug tests me, and as soon as she finds out that I'm smoking pot, she'll be calling your mom too. So that was my way of protecting him, because you won't be with your son or your daughter when they're asked to use drugs.
Right, and this kit gives them almost a good excuse with their peer group, an acceptable one that they kind of beg off on. Instead of going, no, I'm not allowed to do drugs. Ha ha ha! You know,
Right.
are you crazy, dude? You know what? My mom's got a drug. She's going to test me, and then they kind of accept that, and
So,
they don't.
Yep, your kids keep their peers, their friends, but they get out of the situation. I would also say on my drive here this morning, I come down Tatum Boulevard, and photo radar sits there. Do you think I slow down because there's photo radar? Whether it's there or not, I slow down. So this is a home drug test kit is like a photo radar. It is a deterrent to your kids' drug use. And the saddest part of my job is to tell you how many kids approach me to say, please, can you go talk to my mom and let her know how much pressure I'm feeling?
I see. So this is the excuse to get away from the pressure. So you're saying at about 13, whether
Prior to 13.
or even before, and actually test them,
Heading into middle school, well, I look at it this way, Lisa. It's much like a report card. Think of doing it as a checkup. And every time, around report card time, you use the kit and reinforce. I guarantee you, this will be the best conversation you'll ever have with your son or daughter by introducing the kid into the home.
I think it's us as parents. I mean, I'm looking at you, and I know
hard.
Stephanie, I know her daughter, I know my son, and to look at Jake and say, Jake, come in the bathroom because we're going to do this test. I mean, I can just see him going.
I've done the
I
presentation.
just think us as
Yeah.
parents
Yeah.
are just like going, how do we do that?
Well, did you combine the words, hey son, every time you test clean, then there's some reward. What does your son love?
iPod, iTunes.
So you get
that
a
kind of
sign.
stuff.
So you're so okay.
Because-
I think it's just. I think both of us are like, we know our kids. We know that they're not doing it.
I think it was one thing to do the presentation, but I haven't actually said,
Let's do
let's
it.
go into the bathroom and let's do it.
Right.
And that's where he was like, oh, you're silly. This
Well,
is
let
not-
me remind both of you then. Let me give you one more reason. There is a national average of 2 years that a kid has begun using a drug before the parent becomes aware. So if parents, if you want to parent that way, just do this.
Yeah.
That's all you've got, is good luck. And there are millions of parents like myself across this country who are begging you, please don't let your son or your daughter become the next drug addict.
Absolutely. And you said too, Debbie, something you said earlier too, that most kids, when you've talked to kids who started, didn't want to start. They really, really didn't want to go that route.
They don't. By and large, our kids don't want to use drugs, and they're looking for ways out of the situation. And this is something that a parent can actually shoulder and provide their kids. Wouldn't you do it for your kids? If you love your kids as much as I know that you do, this is something you can do to support them and protect them.
I think you were saying also is that this crosses all economic lines.
yeah,
It's,
absolutely.
my kids go to private school, but
Yes.
that doesn't mean it doesn't happen there.
And we work, Lisa, with about 150 schools here in the Valley. There's not one school, parents, that there aren't issues.
My other question is, when your son or daughter looks at you and says, you don't trust me, what do we say?
Honey, I love you, and I want to help you. I want to give you support and a way out of this. And after all, Lisa, at the end of every day, as your son and daughter, as they start to drive and get into car, what are you really worried about when they go out?
The other person hitting them, yeah.
They're really worried about drug and alcohol use.
yeah.
So rather than sit back and hope, take actions.
Well, we've talked about a GPS system for when he starts driving, and so I guess that's the same thing, you're still checking.
You know,
It
bottom
actually
line is all of us parents, we devise sneaky ways to check on our kids. This is no different, and this is probably the most important thing. Thank you, Debbie. I know you've done a lot of work with this, and the reason you named the organization Not My Kid is because every parent goes, not my kid.
That
You
was
know
me,
what?
Lisa.
And so this is a wake-up call to all of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for being on. And Debbie, if you want more information about the kids or about Not My Kid, you can go to our website at azfamily.com/yourlife. Call our hotline. definitely get involved. Get on it now before it is too late. Thanks, Stephanie, too, for your input. Coming up next, we're going to hear expert advice on getting out of credit card debt, and you won't want to miss the big car giveaway at the Fort McDowell Casino.